Welcome to the channel Tribe. This episode is a part of our webinar series Tribecast. In this episode, we are having Chirag Nayak talking on test automation ecosystem for microservices.
So, as 67% of participants have not been part of microservice testing, so this session would be a good session for you guys to know uh, in future if you are going to get a chance to work on it. So, what all things you will need to avoid and what all things you need to look up to. Okay. So today's agenda would be I would be sharing one of the journeys I had of designing an automation ecosystem for a product with 100 plus microservices. And this ecosystem has helped more than 4 organizations to achieve the same goal of delivering a product to their customers faster and with quality. So I'll help you understand what are the things that you should avoid and what are the things you should do when you are dealing with a similar use case. And my goal here is to help you understand that there is an alternative testing strategy for microservices, unlike what we used to do in the earlier days. So as we have heard about Hindi kahavat, right? Jaisi bimari वैसा इलाज. So similarly, I will be talking about how we applied microservice concepts to the solution that we created. Okay. So as we are talking about testing microservices, right? So why not understand what they are? So I've created a simple definition to understand what microservice is, but there is no a clear definition of microservices. Okay. So a product which is designed in a way that entire functionality is divided into smaller services. And each of these service has a set of functionality assigned to them. So when you stitch all these smaller services in the form of web APIs or in async mechanism using messages. So this web, I mean, after stitching that, there will be many smaller services, and each of these smaller services is called microservices. And when you combine them, they are known as microservices. So why do we use microservice? What is the purpose of having microservice architecture? So the purpose of having microservice architecture is that if there is a change in functionality of one of the service, so as we said, each smaller service has its own functionality. So if there is change in one of the service, we don't need to deploy and all of the services. We only need to deploy that service. Sounds like it will help us in faster delivery of changes to the customer. And there is one more concept that I would like you to know about, because we have used that concept in our test ecosystem, which we will talk in the later slides. So the concept is known as domains. Then what are domains? So when you create a logical grouping of microservices, so there are smaller services. When you group those smaller services and you create a logical grouping, then they are called as domains. So for example, user domain, subscription domain. So what does user domain will do? User domain will have services related to user functionality, like authentication service or user creation service. Similarly, subscription domain will have subscription management service, or say deactivation of the subscriptions, and so on. So anyone has any question till now can post the questions in the chat and we can look onto them. Okay. So Now that we know what microservices and domains are, let us talk about the problem statement that we were trying to solve. There was a product which was about to get redesigned from by 5 big services to 100 plus microservices. And some of them were used to deploy on GCP and some of them were used to deploy on AWS. So it was a pure uh, example of hybrid cloud. And all of these services were going to be written in different languages like Node, Python, Java. And there were also serverless cloud functions that were going to be used. So this is was the problem statement that we had in our hand. So what was our goal was? So we had a goal of creating a test ecosystem which will create test scripts for any new microservice coming up in less than 2 days. Sounds challenging, right? So as we said, microservice architecture is used to deliver changes in a faster velocity. It was important for us to have a test ecosystem which will enable this rather than pulling it down. So we have heard about end-to-end test taking days and days to validate a single change, right? So if we want to deliver a faster change and we are moving to our microservices, then we need test ecosystem to be an enabler of doing it rather than stopping it. And it was also important for us that this test ecosystem can be easily pluggable in the continuous integration. Tests should be fast. As I said, we cannot uh, have long running tests because it doesn't serve the purpose of microservice architecture. And what does reliable here means? We cannot have a lot of false positive. What does false positive means? That every time a test is breaking and it is because of some other reasons, right? So there was a current testing ecosystem in place for the 5 big service that I talk about. So these tests were written in SOAP UI. It had only support of API test. There were no message-based tests available. As I said in my earlier slide, microservices can be stitched together in form of APIs and messages. So we need tests which can validate APIs as well as message-based ecosystem. So message-based scenarios were hard to implement in SOAP UI. So consider if we decided to go with the same approach of end-to-end and have implemented tests for 100 plus microservices, then what would have happened? So this is a circle of life that would have happened. Now consider there are 100 plus microservices. Then you will be dealing with deployment of 100 plus microservices. You will have a lot of questions of which service, what versions to use, what version of database schema should I use, right? And if you look at T number of failing points, so each service will be using database, queues, cache. So there will be more number of failing points than the actual number of services that I need to deploy. So consider if my tests fail, it will be very tough to point which is the faulty service. So if one of my end-to-end tests fail, I need to go and check in 100 different services which service has broken the functionality, right? And what if I want to test negative scenarios, like if service A is talking to service B, and I want to test whether how my service A will behave if service B is going to give me 500 error response. I need to go and write some testing code in my service itself, right? So even that is difficult. And we know end-to-end and UI automation are expensive in terms of time and maintenance. And to solve all these problems, we would end up adding more QA engineers to solve these problems rather than solving the actual problems. And soon automation stakeholders like our managers or business people will start losing their confidence in automation ecosystem. And I'm sure you guys have faced this situation every now and then. And just imagine there are 100 microservices. You add up 2, 4, 5, 10 more services, and this cycle will keep on repeating with more complexity. So this would have been the circle of life if we would have continued with end-to-end test. So just look at this infrastructure diagram of Amazon and Netflix. They have 1,000 plus microservices. And imagine if we have to implement end-to-end test for this kind of cluster of microservices and apply that circle of life, I'm sure there will be no life left. So before going into the journey, which I'm going to talk about, let us have a little fun. So can you guys relate to this conversations? It is a typical dev QA and SRE conversation. So I would like you to answer in comments whether do you relate to this kind of uh, conversation? Are they part of your professional life? And do you consider them constructive or destructive? Please do answer. Do you relate to this question conversation? And do you think they are constructive or destructive conversations? I see people commenting yes. So are they constructive or destructive? Uh, uh, Great. So we know that kind of um process that we set up, those kind of conversations that we are going to have. So how about we set up a technology process and change this conversation? So from next slide onwards, I would be talking about the journey that we had in setting up test automation ecosystem and how we changed this conversation. So if not, so now we saw what not to do, not to heavily invest into end-to-end test. Then what should we do instead of end-to-end test? So how about we use the same concept of why microservices are being used. So microservices are being used to have a specific functionality for a smaller service. So what about we test those functionality only rather than concentrating on entire end-to-end flow, right? So consider if each service is designed with specific functionality, then why not test that functionality in isolation? Now, if we start testing them in isolation, that means I am testing only one service. So if you remember circle of life, first step that I have to go after deployment of end services. Now, if I'm testing that service in isolation, I only need to worry about the deployment of that service and not worry about N plus services. And if you go with the concept of if that functionality works in isolation, it is definitely going to work when it is stitched in entire ecosystem of microservices. Now, if we are going to test only one functionality, right, or write test for one service only, now this test becomes very fast and reliable. Reliable in terms of I know now that if something fails, it is failing because of that one particular service only. So now let us look at survey system or isolation test with a sample product. So if you see here, there are three services. Login service. Login service has a functionality of sign in, sign up. There is a subscription service which manages subscription of users like activation, renewal, deactivation. And there is a email service. This service, the functionality of this service is to send emails to the user when a new user signs up, or there is a activation done by a user. So email is triggered that your so and so subscription has been activated for so and so days, or deactivation or whatever. So as you can see, uh, this can be done. This functionality can be done using one service, that all this lies into one service. But to make it more functionalities plus specific, these services are broken into three smaller services, and each service has their own functionality. So how about test them in isolation? So it is time for you folks to put on QA glasses. So let us first define where the logical boundary of each services end. So login service communicates with subscription service via API. Login service communicates with email service via RabbitMQ. That is, there is no synchronous calls. There is a async calls between login service and email service. Similarly, subscription service communicates with email service via RabbitMQ. So there is no direct sync communication. There is a async communication via RabbitMQ using messages in form of JSON. So now, if we start defining boundaries of each of these services, right? So logical boundary of service subscription service, right? It starts with a API call and ends at putting a message in RabbitMQ. Subscription service doesn't care whether that message has been read by email service or not. Its functionality ends at putting a message on RabbitMQ, right? So let us look at this after defining the boundaries. So as I said, right, now if I want to test this subscription service in isolation, right? So what I'll do is I will generate a request from my automation framework calling an API or subscription service, and it will put a message in RabbitMQ. And what I'll do is from my same automation framework, I will read this message and validate whether this message is what I'm expecting. So now I'm testing my subscription service in isolation, and there is no dependency on login service or email service, right? And as subscription service talks to email service in async form, there is no dependency of email service. Similarly, for email service, right? Its contract starts from reading a message from RabbitMQ and triggering an email. So from my automation framework, what I'll do is I'll send a message in RabbitMQ. Email service will read it, and I will check whether I have received my email or not. So now I have defined a logical isolation boundaries of subscription service and email service. Now we look at the logical isolation boundary of login service. Now login service starts at API call from a user. It communicates with subscription service. Now, as we said, we are going to test this login service in isolation, right? So we cannot have dependency of subscription service. Once we start having dependency of subscription service, we are again going into a mode of end-to-end test. So what we'll do is we'll replace subscription service by a mock of subscription service. Now there is a new concept called mock here, because login service is expecting a synchronous response from a service. So we need something which can replace actual service with a mock. So what does mock do? Mock is just a replacement of actual service, but there is no actual logic written in it. The only purpose of mock is to return a hard-coded response based on what request it is receiving. So as I said, right now, if I want to test how my login service will behave if a subscription service is going to return me 500 error response. So now in my mock, I can actually return a 500 error response based on kind of request I'm receiving from login service. So suppose for user one, if I receive a request for user one, I'm going to return a response of 500 error response. So now the control of testing error responses is in my hand. So this is the power we get when we test my services in isolation. Similar example, if mock receives a subscription request for user one, it will return response as success. Similarly, if request with user two is received by mock, it will just return a hard-coded response of failure. So now, as we have seen, logical boundary, what are service tests, right? I hope everyone understands what microservices are, what are new testing strategies that you can use, like you can use service test. But before moving into service test, start defining logical boundaries, where a test starts, where it ends, does it have a dependency of other services, and if it has a dependency, replace it by writing a mock and have a control over those mocks. Based on your test data, return the responses. Okay. So, but now we have understand what is service test, mocks, how to define boundaries, and this is a right way of doing it. They are fast, they are reliable, because now I know if if a service test or login service fails, I know there is an issue with login service. But there is something still missing when I move forward with the isolation of service test. So can anyone tell me what are we missing in this kind of test? You can comment. Yes, we are missing contract test. So what do we mean by contract test? Right? So suppose login service was designed, subscription service was designed, and we started writing test for version 1 of login service, and we replace version 1 of subscription service with mocks. Now suppose subscription service which is exposing APIs to login service. This is important to understand. Subscription service is exposing APIs. So subscription service is a producer of APIs. Logging service is a consumer of those APIs. Logging service is consuming those APIs. So say subscription service change the contract of a API. So consumer, which is a logging service, will start failing. So there is a possibility of contract breach between logging service and a subscription service. There is a possibility of contract breach between logging service and email service. Suppose Jason was expecting email address only in version 1, but email service started expecting email as well as phone number to be part of mandatory fields. Now logging service was only publishing here when we were writing test. Logging service didn't know that email service has changed its contract. So when logging service goes into end-to-end setup, test is definitely going to break. So how do we test contracts in isolation? What do we mean by isolation? That we don't need actual services to test what whether the contract is breaching or not, right? Yeah. So someone said PEC framework. So that is correct. There are contract and PEC test. So as I said, we need to test this contract test in isolation because we cannot have dependency on actual services. Because again, if we start having dependency on actual services, we are going into the same mode of end-to-end. So if we start testing this contract test in isolation, we are going to reduce lot of dependency on E2E. We don't need E2E in longer run. So to do this, there is a very good library called pec.io. It has support in most of the used languages like Node, Python, Java, etc. Best part about pec.io library is it runs in memory. They are extremely fast because they run in memory, and it uses the same concept of unit testing that is being used by developers. And they are reliable because it runs very closely with the service, and it supports both API and messages. Yes, Priyank, we can use Spring Contract Framework, but as I said in earlier slide, this 100 plus microservices were going to use different languages like Node, Python, Java, etc. So we needed a common library which can be used across. If we go with Spring Contract, it is very tightly coupled with Java. But yes, we can use Spring Contract Framework as well to do contract and PEC testing. So now we know what kind of tests we need to write: service test and PEC test. So now we know that we don't need to have a heavy dependency of end-to-end test. Then the revised solution looked like this. So what we did is we didn't try to solve everything at one go. What we did is we used an agile approach. So what we mean by agile approach? So what we did is we didn't try to solve everything at one go. We divided problems into phases. We targeted those phases, and as and when required, we kept building on those frameworks and did some refactoring. And you will see why I'm saying this, that we kept doing it, in an agile format, because we thought of the things and we kept refactoring the things. Okay. So As you can see, in phase one, we use Git as our version control system because it is very important in today's date that you are using a distributed version control. It helps you in collaborating your work with different team members, as well as it helps in continuous integration pipelines. We use Java as our language for writing test framework because majority of QA resources that we had expertise in Java. We didn't want to have a long learning curve. We wanted it to, have a good playing field for the resources that we had in our hand. Another thing, it is important that microservices are not only API based, but they can communicate with each other in form of messages in async format. So it was important that the framework that we write has support of both API testing and notification based microservices. And as I said, we need to remove dependency on actual services. So we need mocks to be replacing them, and these mocks needs to be configurable. What I mean by configurable is, as I said earlier in the example, that they are hard coded, but what you can do is you can create JSON files. You can store it, you can store them in database, write queries over it, and this way you can make your config mocks very configurable. Then we divided then we targeted so as you can see, test execution and validation service and mock service. So as I said earlier that we use the same concept of microservices when we moved into test ecosystem. So what we did is we didn't try to create a test framework which is monolith in nature. So what we did, whatever test data and validation data is required for a test execution, we created a separate service for it. And we created a separate service for mock. And what we did here is it's similar to the microservice concept that you break the functionality into smaller services. So if there is a change in test execution or validation data, I know I don't need to deploy my mock service. Or if there is a change in mock service, I know I don't have to worry about my test execution or validation data. We use Spring Boot framework to write these services because it has a very good integration with different services like MySQL or cloud services, as well as it is very easy to expose API using Spring Boot. One more thing, it was important for us was to be at par with the technology stack of what was used in development. So even developers can contribute to this framework. So Spring Boot was our choice. Then it was important for us that these services get deployed on any machine or on any OS. We didn't want to go into a mode where someone has a Windows machine, write a Windows scripts to deploy, or someone has a Linux machine or someone has a Mac machine. So what we did, we created Docker containers for these services. Now it was a common playing field for any OS or any machine, and it was easily shippable for us. So again, this was at par with the development stack because development services, the actual microservices were going to deploy in Kubernetes. Now, as we have written these services, we need our actual test framework to get this data. So what we did is we exposed APIs on top of these services. So whenever I want to query any, say I want to test logging service and I want data for test case one. So what I'll do is I'll hit a API saying, give me a data for test case one of logging service, and it will return me a JSON which has test execution data, what I need to pass in my test, what I need to validate. And it was important that management of this test data. Suppose I want to add a new test case, data for a new test case. Suppose I want to add a new mock response for X kind of request. So it should not be that I have to go to n number of places, to n number of things, and then the data comes up. So what we did is we used the Flyway library. So it has a very good integration with Spring Framework. So what do we mean by, so what does Flyway library does? It is very simple. You need to create a SQL file, put it in a predefined folder. So when your test execution service and mock service comes up, right, comes up in the sense, starts, this Flyway library will go and read a new SQL file and it will just insert in your database. So we use MySQL as our storage for storing our test execution and mock responses. And we use Flyway library to manage insertion, updation, and deletion of test data. So if I want to add any test case, just go and create a SQL file, write insert query, redeploy the service, and I have that test case data with me. So it was important for us to have this easy mechanism of playing with test data. Then we again used a concept of microservices. As we talked about domain in the earlier slides, that domain is a group, logical group of microservices like user domain. So user domain can have login service, authentication service, etc. So why this logical grouping is done? So it is easier for teams to manage them. So a group of people will manage one domain. Group of other people will manage other domain. And those domains will have number of services as a part of it. So what we did, now we did a refactoring. We started seeing that our test framework is getting monolith. It is having lot of dependency because more and more microservices coming up. So there are more number of people working on the same repository. So it was important for us to break it down so we can manage access. We can divide people who can have access to those repository and so on. But there was a very important reason of doing this. Can anyone guess, other than having uh, access or easy maintainability, what can be the other reason of doing this? So can anyone answer why creating separate test repository per domain was important? Other than maintainability, giving access to specific people, not breaking changes if too many people are working on it. What can be the other reason? Anyone? Random guess. Separate Docker containers? Yes, but still I can deploy it in a Docker container in a big container. So, okay. So the important reason of doing this was when we started plugging our test in our CI framework, right? Of actual services. Say logging service has its own CI pipeline. Now there is a isolation test running on every commit of a developer. So if my test repository is growing, and if it is taking 30 seconds to just check out, now calculate, there are 300 plus commits happening every day in an organization, and it is taking 30 seconds just to check out. So it is taking 9,000 seconds in a day, which is 2.5 hours of a day just to have a code repository checkout. So if you start adding these numbers across days, weeks, months, it will be a lot of man hours that we are losing just to have a code repository checkout. So it is important that fast and reliable test execution doesn't only mean that tests are fast. If your test setup is taking more time than your test execution, it is also part of your test execution time. So it is important that you start thinking about this when you are creating an ecosystem for more than 20 microservices, and there are a lot of commits happening per day. So I hope this is clear, because it is a very important factor when you start adding this time in your CI pipeline. So we created test repositories per domain because of three reasons: easy maintainability, so that other domain people don't break other domains test ecosystem. Secondly, it is you can easily divide accesses to those repos. So certain group of people is working on a certain type of repositories. Third, it is important that your monolith test repo doesn't add up the time in your CI pipelines, just because it is so big that it is taking time to check out. So think about it when you are planning to design an ecosystem. Similarly, we created test data service and mock services per domain. Idea is the same. Now it is important that every time we do some change in these two services, it is important that there is no manual intervention. So we created continuous integration pipelines. Similarly, like actual services, these two services also had their own CI pipeline. So as soon as any QA member does any check-in on a develop branch or any pull request is merged, it goes and deploys it wherever it needs to be, whether it's your isolation environment, or it's your staging environment, or it's your end-to-end environment. So it was important. So Saurabh Parse is asking, did you consider per microservice test repo? So yes, we considered. So ideal microservice contains its code. So what it does. So each microservice repository should answer these three questions. What does it do? So the answer is in source. How is it tested? So your answer is in your test folder. And how it is deployed. So even your deployment script should lie in your microservice repository itself. So if you have lot of resources to handle this kind of ideal microservice where test, deployment, and source folders are in the same repository, that is the right approach. But if you don't have that many number of people to look after your test ecosystem, you can go with domain based, where you don't have test per repository, but you are grouping them based on your domains. So yes, you can go with the approach of having isolation test in your microservice repo itself, but that is the ideal case where developer and QA both are contributing to the test. But if the ratio of team is 5 is to 1, 5 developer is to 1 QA, it is not possible if QA only is managing the test ecosystem. If that is the scenario, go with the domain-based approach. Then in phase 3, we also start having performance test for microservices. For this, we use Gatling as a tool because it helps us in writing scripts. It is written in Scala, which is very close to Java, and it helped us building an ecosystem where we just create JSON files for APIs and the tests are executed accordingly. So yes, it took us time to create that kind of framework, but we can talk about it in length in other session. But this was the approach that we took for performance test. We used Gatling framework. We created a framework in a form of just the configuration. You put a JSON file for a API, run the test for that API, and the results are generated. So we talked about, so everything was perfect, but still we were missing with the contract breach issues. Contract breach issues are very important in the earlier stages of development when services are changing drastically over sprint. So having validation for contract test was important. We started writing test using peg.io library. Yes, it is difficult for QA engineers to write those tests because it is very close to writing unit tests, which developers are supposed to write. But if you understand how to write basic unit test, it is not very hard to write those tests. But it is very important if you are moving away from end-to-end test, then validation tests are important as a part of your test ecosystem. Secondly, there are different way of measuring your test ecosystem performance and coverage and all. Some people look at test number of test cases, number of business use cases, but we took a different approach as we were using microservices approach. We were using peg.io library as a which is very close to unit test. So we were closer to development kind of testing. So what we thought of, if we can measure unit test coverage, which developers write, so why not do the same for isolation of service test? Can we measure code coverage? So suppose I'm doing a login service test. API is been triggered from automation framework. It test passes, but how do I know whether I'm hitting the right number of classes or right number of methods? So we started having code coverage of our service test as well. So this was the new approach that we took. So combining your unit test coverage, your service test coverage, and your end-to-end coverage. This all coverage should be near to 100%. So suppose your 80% coverage is being handled by unit test, then try to target remaining 20 in your isolation test. Suppose if 20% only is being covered by unit test, try to target remaining 80 through your isolation test. I'm not saying just 80, but you can plan your testing strategy based on these numbers. So that was very important step that we took. It helped us to concentrate on what kind of test we want to target. Secondly, we started creating JIRAs. if a test fails in a CI, automatically a Jira is created. Once that test pass in the next commit of a developer, that Jira is automatically closed. So QA or dev member doesn't need to have any manual intervention. We needed a ecosystem for 100 plus microservice not to have manual intervention, just to go and close a Jira or create a Jira. So it was part of CI framework. As soon as test fails, it will create a Jira, marking a commit ID and marking it to the committer which has committed the change. And once that developer makes a commit in a branch and if the test pass, it will close the Jira automatically. Now, in a agile format, right? You must have heard a lot of people talking about. So before moving that, a couple of people have asked what code coverage tool you use. So we use the same uh, concept that we use for doing unit test. We are using Jacoco library to do it. But to do it, there is some instrumentation that is required. So before you start your service, you need a Jacoco agent to be part of your command, and that jar should be present there. So once that service is up, Jacoco agent is listening and it will create a code coverage for you. So that requires us in instrumentation, but we use Jacoco library as measuring our code coverage. So yeah, coming back to in Agile, many people you must have been listening that why QA waits till the end when the functionality is ready. Why not they start it earlier? So if we go with isolation test concept, right, and we have mocks as a part of our strategy, right? So what we decided as even before developer starts writing the code, it will publish the API contracts. So there will be a documentation that XYZ API will expect XYZ JSON and it will return a ABC JSON as a response. So when developer is actually developing that functionality, QA will write a mock. So mock is nothing just a actual replacement, but in a hard-coded form. You don't need to actually implement the logic. You just need to make sure that when ABC JSON comes on XYZ API, it will return ABC JSON. So mocks were created even when development is in progress. Tests were created. So QA is actually writing test against mock, not waiting for actual functionality to come up. So tests are even ready before the development is done. So as soon as development is finished and CI of that service is ready, the tests are ready. So we were in agile mode that tests are ready even before the services are ready. So our goal of writing test scripts even in less than 2 days was achieved, but in phase 4 we didn't target that in a phase 1. So as I said, we approached our testing ecosystem in a agile mode. We did the refactoring in form of we had only one test framework, then we created a framework for different domains rather than having one monolith. Then we started creating Docker containers. We created separate services for test data. And eventually we started using the same concept of mocks of creating test scripts even before development is done. So we were able to achieve the goal of writing a test scripts within 2 days. And it is very important when new services are coming up in every sprint, because as I said, if ratio of developer versus QA is 5:1. So there are 5 developers developing, say, 3 services, and only one QA is writing test. So it is important that your framework is in such a way that you don't spend time on, like I said, updation of your test data. We use Flyway. So QA doesn't spend time in managing DBs or anything. Just create SQL file. The pipeline will deploy the service itself using continuous integration, and test data is available. So all those was achieved in phase 4. So this is how our tech solution look like after phase 4. So we use Jenkins for our orchestration. So CI pipelines were created in Jenkins. We use Ansible as our deployment strategy for managing different environments. As I said, we use Jacoco for code coverage of isolation test. We were using Docker as a containers for deploying test data service and mock service. We use Peg.io for contract test. We replaced Gatling. So I need to update this slide, but we were using Gatling. We replaced JMeter. Then, as I said, we used to create automated Jiras. There, as I said, deployments were supposed to happen on AWS and GCP. So GCP was part of test ecosystem. We use few services. Then we used to send notification on chat, Google Chat. MySQL was used as a data storage for test data and mock responses. As I said, Java was used as a language. TestNG for validation, REST assured for API calls, Spring Boot, as I said, for test data and mock services, Flyway for managing test data by creating just SQL files, and Maven was a build tool. So this is how our CI pipeline looked for test data service and a mock service. So as soon as someone commits something in develop branch, or a pull request is been merged of some QA into develop branch, automatically all the stages runs. Docker artifact is created and it is deployed on an environment called CI/Dev. So once the service starts on deploy CI/Dev, Flyway will look for any new SQL file. If that SQL file is present, it will just create it in the database. So you have that test data available through APIs. So it was just a matter of 4 minutes that your changes are available through APIs. Similarly, for mock service, if you have created new API in a mock, or if you have added a SQL file for a response, similarly in 4 minutes you have those changes available on one of the environments. So we actually wrote a pipeline similar to the service CI. We didn't have any bifurcation, whether it's a actual microservice or a test ecosystem service. It needs to go through the same process, a PR, merge, and a CI pipeline. No manual intervention. And this is the pipeline of actual service. As you can see, there are consumer tests part of the service. If it passes, then only a Docker artifact is created. Then it is deployed on CI/Dev environment. The isolation test, service test, or system tests are triggered. We may have a coverage calculated, and if it is passes, we update the actual image tag here. So as you can see, there were total 60 tests, system tests. As you can see, 60. It has total 158 steps, and total time taken for system test was only 16 seconds. So it is fast, reliable, because if it fails, you know that it is failing only for login pipeline service. So now you can see in 6 minutes, you know if a developer commit is a valid commit to go into a further environment. So CI dev was considered as a isolation environment where no services talk to other services. They only communicate with mocks. So when this service comes up in the property file, it is pointing to a mock service and not the actual service. So isolation environment is important, that no one touches it, and it is pointing to actual mocks and not the actual services. So Shobit is asking, what is the tool you are using for pipeline visualization? So this is Jenkins. It has a new UI in Blue Ocean. So this is part of Jenkins. You can search on the left hand side of a pipeline. There is a link called as Blue Ocean. You click it. This is the view that you can see. Yeah, so important stats regarding this test ecosystem. So there were only 2-member core team, and why this is here, because if you look at the complexity and the kind of things we have achieved, so this 2-member team laid the foundation of all the frameworks or concept of adding code coverage to service test, writing peg.io test, and all those things. I'm not saying tests were written by all the tests were written by these 2 team members, but all the frameworks, the concept of creating frameworks for test domain, domain specific, or creating mock services, test data services. So all these frameworks, the foundations were laid by only 2-member core team. There were contributions from other team members as in when we started growing in terms of microservices. Result of this testing strategies that we use, there was a better communication between dev and QA, because now QA needs to know what kind of APIs dev is writing so that they can create mocks. There were communications regarding how are they handling negative scenarios. What if a service is returning 500 error response? How are you handling it? So all this kind of communication start happening between dev and QA. Now QA was not a part of only end to end. They were part of actual development cycle. So the communication increased. It was good in terms of there were very good suggestions given by QA at the start of API design itself. So that kind of communication should happen when you are moving into a microservice kind of architecture. You cannot have QA wait till the end of the service is developed, because a small change in a big ecosystem can have a lot of problems to it. So involving QA was important, and it was not just a process of a manager itself. The test ecosystem, or if you can say technology process that we created, mandated it that QA has to be part of these discussions. We wrote on an average 40 test cases per service. So that means if you look at 100 microservices, so there were 4,000 test cases. And you saw that 60 test cases took around 16 seconds. So you can do the maths for 4,000 test cases. It was not a lot of time, but if you run 4,000 end-to-end test cases, you know how much time it would take. It would take days. As I said, average test execution time was less than 1 minute per service. So as we saw for login service, similarly for 100 other microservices, average execution time for a system test, we targeted it to be 3 minutes, but we were able to achieve 1 minute. So the goal was not to compromise on number of test cases, but how you write your test cases. No hard-coded sleeps. If you want sleeps, write a smart weights, any and that kind of things. Oscar, as we are discussing upon about API and microservice kind of testing, UI test is not part of it, but we can have other session where we had front end and UI tests on top of this, but that was very thin layer. We didn't want lot of end-to-end tests to be part of this ecosystem. So Bhaskar, we can talk about it maybe in some other session. We'll plan it later. So as I said, there were 300 plus commits per day, which were validated. There was 80% reduction in issues on pre-prod. Why the number is 80%? It could have grown more because, as I said, writing contract test peg.io requires a specialized skill because it is similar to writing unit test as developers write. So we needed more number of contract tests to come up, but we were not able to hit that numbers. And why I'm talking so confidently about this test ecosystem, because we have already implemented this kind of ecosystem for 4 other companies, 4 different products, and it is working perfectly. Developers are happy, QAs are happy, and it is working. So now the conversation after this technology process has changed. So now would you would you like to have this kind of conversation? So in the beginning, I asked whether you can relate to a type of conversation. Now, would you like to have this kind of conversation? The question has changed. Please answer. Priyank is asking how it will work with existing or legacy microservices. What if other producer team reluctant to avoid another layer of test with existing code base? So Priyank, answer to this is, as I said, contract tests are supposed to be written by dev, which because it is very close to unit test. But to make them believe that this kind of test is going to solve their problems, what we did is we started writing tests. Being a QA team member, we showed them by writing test how it is going to help their life in the longer run, rather than just telling them do it, do it, do it. Yes, we try to do it that way, that we asked them to do it, but it was not moving forward. So what we did is we started writing tests for few of the services. We showed them what it brings on the table. They were happy, and they were happy to contribute later on. So you can approach this in a different way. You start writing tests. I'm not saying you are the owner. Take out some time, start writing tests which they are reluctant to write. Show them show your team members, show your stakeholders that this test can prevent all these things. Once everyone believes what you are saying, I am sure everyone will contribute. Bhaskar is asking roughly how many APIs per service. So I don't have exact number, but on an average 10 APIs. So yeah, back to my question. What do you think about this conversation that you are seeing on screen? Is it constructive, destructive? Do you want this to be part of your team? Great, we have a couple of people saying constructive. Rest of the people, where are you? Hope I didn't put you guys to sleep. So Abhit is saying sounds like a dream. So we have lived this dream 4 times till now. Okay. So something about what we do at Bruising before we take further questions from you guys. So we are 11 months old and we have already collaborated with 10 plus clients. Uh, so whatever test ecosystem you are looking at, we have done this for development as well as DevOps as well, and combine it, we call it Center of Excellence, and we have implemented this Center of Excellence practices in 3+ organizations. We have created CI pipelines and service tests for 300 plus repositories. We have contributed with 6,000 plus service tests, isolation tests. We do Kubernetes deployments for 200 plus services. We have expertise in AWS, Azure, and GCP, all kind of cloud services, main cloud services. And we also help teams move from on-prem to clouds. You can follow us on LinkedIn, or you can visit our website bruising.com. You can follow our LinkedIn page. We every now and then publish blogs related to kind of works we do. Thank you for being part of this session. Hope it was helpful. Uh, and if someone wants to have that kind of conversation, do connect with us. We are expertise in doing this kind of work. So connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me a message, we can talk. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chirag. It was wonderful. And while I was, trying to see multiple windows that everything is going well, and I was still trying to grasp whatever you presented throughout. So I definitely need another watch to, get the hold of all the things which you may really explained at, very good depth. So thank you for that. Thank you for your time.
So
Thank you for attending. You still have question, you can post it in the comment section. We can probably, take a question or two more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Aya Muthu is asking where we can find the video. So this is getting live streamed on the Facebook community. You can search the Test Tribe community if you aren't part of it. So you can see it there. So Chirag, there are few questions there as well, which you probably can, answer in the comment section. You're already
Yeah.
there. And eventually the video will also go to our YouTube channel. That may take few weeks for editing and all. But yeah, that's where you can find it again as well.
Sobit is asking about what about performance testing. Sobit, as I said, we use Gatling as a framework to have our performance testing. Any specific thing you want to know about it? Because it requires a separate session altogether because we created a framework. So for UI, we are using Selenium. We also try to use Cypress. So Sobit, performance test was not part of regular CI pipeline because it takes time. So we had a multi-branch CI pipeline strategy. As I said, similar to test ecosystem, we had DevOps ecosystem. We had a multi-branch CI pipeline strategy. So it is altogether a different session. But there we not used to test everything on develop branch. We used to test few of the things on a release branch, or there were nightly jobs created to do this kind of things where we take a particular branch from the repository, say we take a release branch from repository, we deploy on a performance test environment, and then we run performance test. And email is triggered with the resulted output. So performance test was not part of CI pipeline of a developed branch. It was nightly jobs for a particular kind of branch only. So we use multi-branch pipelines. You can read about it. So it will require another session where similar to test ecosystem, there was a DevOps ecosystem. We combined it and it was center of excellence practices, which each service needs to perform or follow. How we can define the test strategy for microservices. I explained it that you can write service test or isolation test and contract test and have less dependency on end-to-end test. Are you asking something specific here, Ayamutu? Because this session was about those test strategies. Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. You can watch it later.
Yeah, and Chirag is there on the Facebook community as well, Ayamutu. So you can join it there, and you can tag him in the comment section. He'll answer whenever he can. Yeah, so I think this was perfect session with respect to time as well. We just hit 7:30, so we are good to close. So thank you, Chirag, for taking out time and explaining things at such depth. All of us will, I think, surely watch it again to get hold of it and take our takeaways.
I would like to thank
Yeah.
Test Tribe community for giving me this opportunity.
Pleasure. Thank you all the attendees for taking out time again. We'll again meet next weekend with some other webinar. Chirag, you have any closing thoughts? Otherwise, we are good to close.
No, so if someone tells you that microservice testing is not achievable, it is. You can send them to me. I will explain because we have achieved 4 times. So I'm definitely sure I can convince them. And
Awesome.
Thank you once again, Mahesh and Sumit and Test Tribe community to giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, thanks to Sumit as well for connecting. and making this happen. So good, guys. So we are disconnecting. Stay safe. Take care of yourself, and we'll again meet on the coming weekend. And obviously, we'll keep collaborating in the online community. So
Sure.
any of you, if you are not part of the community, just go to Facebook and search the Test Drive community, or hit the URL bit.ly/ttt community. You should be able to join there.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. So we are closing in 3, 2, 1. Goodbye.
Goodbye.